point. And the other point that I wanted to get to is also, I don't think it was all NFL teams, because there were some teams that just weren't in the market for a quarterback, and didn't need to draft one. But the ones that did make that decision and met with Shedeur and found reasons to draft other guys, ahead of him, I do think there was a bit of fear of even Shedeur himself and the aura that he gives off, and being a confident young, brother, and coming from a family of means. So he wasn't coming clawing, scratching, needing about this. It becomes a subjective thing on whether certain scouts or people, a lot of which have never even played the game themselves, that they're evaluating on whether they just like a kid or not. And what you just mentioned, I want to get into also the whole specter of Deion Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as many people know that follow this platform, I am extremely biased when it comes to Deion Sanders, and I will admit that he was my childhood hero. And yes, Prime still to this day can do no wrong in my eyes. Now, with that said, I'm still going to stick to what I know and can be factually proven, even in relation to that. If you're a GM, if you're an owner, if you're a head coach, if you're a front office personnel in the NFL, and you're worried about Deion Sanders and his presence as to why you passed on Shedeur and let him slide to the fifth round, you're in the wrong business anyway. If your PR department is scared of another grown man, and let's be honest, there is a Deion presence.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He's one of the greatest athletes, not just of our time, of all time, to ever walk the face of the earth. So yes, there is a presence, there is an aura around him, and certainly around his son being the son of Deion Sanders. But if that's what you're worried about as a professional sports organization, then you need to leave your job. If you can't control the narrative around your organization and you're scared of drafting Shador
That's a
because of
fact.
that, as
That's a
if
fact.
Deion's gonna be knocking on your door or commenting every day on what goes on in your organization. Let me tell you something. LeVar Ball was a worse presence than Deion Sanders
For
would
sure.
be. He
Definitely.
still has a job, and he's not going to be interfering in the day-to-day affairs of Shedeur Sanders. And other establishments fear what we now have in this NIL era, and players having more power and a presence on social media, and ability to sometimes direct where they go and what opportunities they have, and they're coming in with chicken now, so to speak, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to completely being, bare butt naked and having to comply with everything, and I don't have any money coming in or opportunities or my own narrative being shaped. And what better person or player or prospect to make an example of than the high profile Shedeur Sanders
Who
coming
already
in?
has 5 endorsements
That's
and was
that's what I
drafted
thought.
in the
His
fifth
own
round.
media presence, his brother that runs the social media for the family and stuff. So I do think there were certain teams that were sending a message and or threatened or just didn't want to deal with it, like they said, or I don't want the camera in the backup quarterback's locker room, in front of his locker. Although I don't view Shador as a backup, at least not long term, if it's a fair competition that's out there. So that it was multi-layered, like you said. You can't take the color aspect out of it, you can't take the Dion aspect out of it. You can't take the I want to make an example out of this new generation of kid aspect out of it. So it wasn't just one thing. It was all encompassing.
But my thing is this, and I keep back to this, and brother and some other people called me about it and everything. I said, if your name is not Manning or some of those other ones, it's gonna have an issue. When Peyton Man, I'll never forget that draft. And I sat and watched him do that. And I said to myself, I was like, how can you sit there and tell somebody, do not draft my kid? If you do draft me, he's not gonna play, when you got 20,000 other guys that are like wishing they get just an invite to a camp, not let alone getting on a practice squad or something like that. You got guys out here that will steal, rob, and do all kind of craziness just to get on a roster. When your kid is getting ready to get picked, we know he's gonna be the number one pick, and you over there pulling the strings, and y'all thought that was okay because we didn't hear much out afterwards. But
We didn't.
Deion opened his mouth and said certain things about he did the same thing, but they didn't like it that black face was trying to tell the NFL, that big shield, don't do this.